very good evening to you this Monday evening. It's now 8 o'clock. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole, and it is time for the big story tonight. And it's all about that coveted World Cup trophy that is in the country today. And this is the third time in the country that Kenyans are getting a glimpse of this world-famous trophy, even though Kenya is yet to ever get an opportunity to participate in the World Cup. Now, although Kenya has donated great players to foreign football clubs, here at home, the great game continues to suffer many challenges. As we speak, the national football team, Harambee Stars, has no coach and has no sponsor. Meanwhile, President Uhuru Kenyatta has promised collaboration between county and national governments in nurturing the sport. Should we expect better tidings in 2018, or will the soccer pitch remain rough? That is our discussion tonight. This return of the FIFA World Cup trophy to Kenya gives us a moment for pause to actually analyze and interrogate the state of football in the country today. Please do share your comments with us. The hashtag is The Big Story, at Yvonne Okwara, at KTN News. We'd love to hear what you have got to say. So let's first listen to President Uhuru Kenyatta today, as he took a moment to appreciate this World Cup trophy tour.
For the third time, our country has been honored by the arrival, once again, of this magnificent trophy in its world tour. I want to say on behalf of all Kenyans that we are truly grateful both to Coca-Cola and FIFA for once again picking Kenya as one of the countries during this Cup's tour across the world. It shows considerable partnership, friendship, and the growing contribution, I would say, of our partners in terms of helping us develop our sports in this country. Today is a day of celebration. Today is a day for us to be proud. Today is a day for us to remember that we still have a chance to one day enter that great field and participate in a World Cup tournament.
We absolutely do have the chance to do that. So what is it going to take to get our football to world-class standards? We will be discussing that. But first, let's just take you on this trip and this tour of the World Cup trophy. And the number of countries it's been touring has been increasing every 4 years. In 2006, it visited 29 countries. In 2010, 84 countries. In 2014, it visited 90 countries. And now, in 2018, this journey began in September last year in the host country, that is Russia. It kicked off in Moscow and stayed there for a while until December, before now kicking off the global tour to 51 countries. Started in Khartoum, Sudan, and is then made its way to Addis, Ethiopia, a few days ago. And it is, of course, now in Nairobi, spending today and tomorrow as well, after which the World Cup trophy makes its way all the way down to Maputo in Mozambique. And then we'll go further down south in the 1st of March to Johannesburg. South Africa is lucky. They get to see this in 2 towns. If you move to the Western Cape, that'll be in Cape Town on the 3rd of March. And then from Southern Africa, it comes all the way back up to East Africa. That is to our neighbor, Kampala, Uganda. And then goes off to West Africa. Again, Nigeria gets to see it in 2 countries. That's Abuja and Lagos, both the political and the commercial capitals there. From there, then, 11th of March, it'll be in Dakar, Senegal. And then mid-March, Abidjan, Ivory Coast. And on the 15th to the 16th, it will be in Cairo. Now, it is set to go across 91 cities, across 6 continents. And it will return to the host country in May, just in time for the World Cup FIFA 2018 in Russia. So that's a look at where it has been. But I will be introducing to you my panel tonight. We'll be engaging the Football Kenya Federation President Nick Mwendwa tonight. He is joining the conversation on the big story. Also a man you know well here on KTN News. He's a veteran sports editor here at the Standard Group. That's Robin Toskin. He'll also be on the show to just give us historical background and context as to the state of football and indeed solutions moving forward. Also later on the show, on phone we'll have former Harambee Stars player Sammy Omolo. He'll be speaking to us on phone. His perspectives, of course yours perspectives as well, will be highly welcome. The hashtag is the big story, so continue to send your views in. Let's not forget, we have our lead reporter on the show tonight. That's Sophia Wanuna, who's joining us from the Nairobi Central Business District. Sophia.
Good evening, Yvonne. Yes, the presence of the World Cup trophy in the country tonight allows for us to reflect at the state of football in Kenya. And speaking to many football commentators as well as football and sports journalists as well as analysts, many will tell you that the state of football in Kenya is weak. And this owing to several of the developments and things we've seen unfold in the recent past. So let's begin with last week, for instance, we saw the national team coach, Harambee Stars, that's Paul Put, resign. Whilst on his resignation letter, he cited personal reasons. Those in the sports and football scene here in Kenya talk about a man who was frustrated. Remember, an experienced man. He has led 2 African teams to the Africa Cup of Nations. He led Jordan to the 2014 World Cup. And so you'd imagine this is a man who knows what he's doing. And just 3 months into his job here in Kenya, he resigned. And many saying that it was frustrations of not being given a free hand to do as he sees best and is fit for the national team. That, for instance, he'd wanted to be able to be given the authority and leeway to come and put together the technical bench. But others involved in the processes were adamant and held that several processes and individuals should stay as they were. So a man who some would describe as a frustrated official who tried to bring out the best in the sport but could not. But also, Yvonne will remember recently also witnessing the withdrawal of the hosting rights of the African Nations Championships, that's CHAN, and Kenyans had been excited and looking forward to this. In fact, the man you have in studio, the president of the FKF, had indicated that if the CHAN was not hosted in Kenya, he would resign. It was not hosted in Kenya. He said later he would not resign, FKF citing the political landscape in the country at the time, the long electioneering time that affected planning. However, many criticized FKF, the Ministry of Sports and other entities, saying that more could have been done. It was not done to ensure that Kenya was in fact able to host this prestigious championship in the continent. And before that, the year before, Yvonne, Kenya also getting banned from participating in the under-20 African games, and this is because Kenya dishonestly fielding overage players, and this was the finding of the CAF. So finding that Kenya in fact was getting involved and engaging in dishonest activities, an under-20 tournament, and fielding players in a game that should not have been participating because of the age limit of the same. But that's not the only case, Yvonne. Those are some of the recent activities. Let's talk about sponsorship and money, which is big for sports. Sports is big money, and usually for the teams or the organizations managing this, there's a requirement of funding. And so you have the likes of Sports Pesa, although this was triggered by the increase in taxation by the government rising to 32%. And at the time, Sports Pesa contending that if in fact that was implemented, they then would pull out their sponsorship, which ran at the time to millions, hundreds of millions of shillings. And because the government did go ahead with the increase of taxation, Sports Pesa did pull out. This has adversely affected football in Kenya. But what the government did promise at the time is that it would fill that gap. It would provide the financing. It would be able to come in and fill the gap where Sports Pesa had stepped out. However, to date, that has not happened, Yvonne. Also of importance to note is Super Sport pulling out that is broadcasting the Kenya Premier League to the African continent. And in its letter terminating the contract with Kenya, it did stipulate that when it got into that contractual agreement, it's understood that the boss, the one who called the shots, was KPL, not FKF. And a dispute at the time arose on the number of teams in the Kenya Premier League. So for a decade now, Yvonne, there have been 16 teams. However, when the new boss, that's Mwendwa, not so new now, came into office, he talked about 18 teams being involved in the league. KPL opposed this move and this proposal by FKF, saying first, they did not have the funding. Second, the contract with SuperSport did not allow for an increase in the number of teams in the Kenya Premier League. However, this move went on. Later, we saw a judgment that found, in fact, that FKF, the Football Kenya Federation, had unprocedurally ordered the number of teams. But based on that alone, SuperSport exited in terms of sponsoring teams. And it was, again, millions of shillings coming into the clubs as well as the management of football here in Kenya. So you have that loss of funding. Then you have these players that were getting this amazing exposure, and as far as SuperSport showing these matches, that again stopping. But also over 300 young people left jobless, Yvonne, that were working for SuperSport in coverage of the various matches around. So these are some of the ripple effects we've seen, the decisions, whether at the management level, the wrangles within the various institutions in sport interfering and affecting football in Kenya. But Yvonne, it is not a question of talent, because I will mention a feature that was carried on CNN, their program Inside Story, that featured young boys, 11 years of age, from Korogosho. Their passion, their talent, their everyday, they eat, sleep, talk, and practice and do football, and they have been doing so well that in the last 2 years in Europe they have won a tournament pitting them against the best of the best when you're talking football. Teams of Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Yvonne, these are giants when it comes to football. So that when you look at the dire straits and situation Kenyan football is, that's one story. But the talent Kenya has, and these young boys and kids just paint a classic picture of the potential this country has. And so really it is about getting the management right, the priorities right, and a new man at the helm of the sports ministry. Many say they do not have confidence in him. Of course, those questions around his educational background and whether he's fit to hold this. However, we saw during the vetting, as those MPs were questioning him, talking about unforeseen qualifications that perhaps would see him fit to be able to conduct himself in this ministry. And for that, it's a matter of time. We'll have to wait and see. But great that you have the FKF president with you to respond to some of these allegations, these mishaps and missteps that has continued to see the state of Kenyan football remain at a poor state. And of course, Robin Toskin will be shedding more light and perspective from where we've come from, where we stand, and hoping for a better future for football in Kenya. Yvonne.
That's right, Sophia. Thank you for laying the foundation regarding the state of soccer or football in this country. That is a good place to then begin our conversation with my panel. Sophia Wanuna, thank you very much, our lead reporter here on The Big Story. So let's talk football on The Big Story tonight, shall we? First off, we've asked you on Twitter whether you think Kenya will ever qualify for the World Cup. Some rather grim messages and views on that, but we'll get to understand whether this pessimism is well placed or whether we are in fact doing well. So let's talk about football right now with my guests. We have the FKF president, Nick Mwendwa, as we told you in the beginning. We also have Robin Toskin, who is a sports editor here at the Standard Group. Robin, I'd like to start with you. In 1998, before Nick Mwendwa, the current president, took over, the rankings were at 98. We've sort of gone up and down. Actually, we've gone up quite a bit. 89 in 2016, 87 at the beginning of 2017. And then end of last year, we were at 111. What happened?
There are quite a number of issues that are all intertwined, and you cannot just pinpoint at one of them and say, maybe this is the exact reason. There are so many things that have happened. And maybe just to put into context what Sophia has also said, that we have the talent. We've seen young kids being featured on CNN and how they've gone ahead to beat some of the best clubs in Europe. And maybe for the benefit of our viewers also is that one of the first Kenyans to play or to get into a European club was the late Jonathan Niva, who was Kenya's captain to the African Cup of Nations in 1972. He actually went to Germany, trained with the Nuremberg FC, and although he did not play for them, he came back to Kenya and continued with his local football here in Kenya. And further than that, Kenyans will remember that in 1979, Gor Mahia reached the finals of the Africa Cup, Winners' Cup. That is in 1979, losing to a Cameroonian side. And thereafter, we qualified for the African Cup of Nations in 1988, 1990, 1992. That is to tell you that we really don't lack talent. We've got the talent. And the question that we should be asking ourselves then is, if a Kenyan joined a German club as early as 1972, Gor Mahia reaching the finals of the one of the Africa's Premier Cup competitions, then what could have changed?
Okay,
is it just one reason?
Yeah. Okay,
or that it's time for us to go through all those reasons?
All right, Robin, that's a great, historical perspective as well. Before we even get into like the details and the meat of it, you said it's not one reason, it's a number of them. Can you at least just list them and then we will get into them in a short while?
Yeah, I would say one of them, first of all, is departing from what made our stars, our footballers, great in the 70s and the 80s. And one of them is we stopped developing talent. We identify talent, but then we don't do anything going forward. Secondly, the primary people who produce the players, that is the clubs, the football clubs, have never thought about a football club being a business entity. They have always sat back and waited for the Football Federation and also the national government to think for them. Then thirdly, I'll talk about the overall management of all those entities. That's the club, the federation, and also the administration of the sport from the government point of view. All those combined to make it so difficult for us. And then fourthly, there's no investment that is coming directly from the government to complement what is coming from the corporate sector. So all those four reasons, for me, combine to make it so difficult for us to move our football forward. Okay,
Nick Mwendwa, FKF president, do you agree with Robin Toskin's assessment of what's happening with the football scene in the country? Is this a fair assessment in your view?
I think Robin is seasoned and has experienced the game for probably longer than I have. I've been here shorter than Robin. But I listened to Sophia, then I've heard what Robin's saying. I think Robin is more balanced in the way he views it because that's what he does every day. But I just wanted to say a few things. I listened to Sophia, and these are the issues that we pick out about the game in Kenya. But I just want to recount where we are today, so we can pick our conversation from here. I think, Yvonne, it's good to do that. Okay. So one is that I was elected 2 years ago. Why was I elected? I was elected because for 30 years, for the years that you've heard Robin talk about, I was born sometime in 1980. And you heard Robin talk about Niva, Coach Niva going in 1972 and playing for Nuremberg. So you can see those worlds are two worlds apart. I got here 2 years ago, and I got here because of all those things that you've heard being mentioned. So let's go there straight. What have we done? Because I heard Sophie talk about the things that have gone wrong. So I want to pick, just before I attack that, talk about what we have done. And I told the president today that we have been dreaming, Yvonne, about going to the World Cup. But 2 years ago, we woke up and said, let's stop dreaming, put the dream aside, and actually wake up, start doing the things we need to do. So what have we done is that we rectified FKF and put together an office. Nowadays, we have an office of FKF, employed professionals, and go to work at the Gold Project. We never had a place you could go and could be served. That's one. Two is that we started doing the big things. And what are the big things? Very important. You cannot solve football in one day. So we decided to focus on the youth. So what did we do last year and the year before is that we have an under-13 league across the country in 45 sub-branches. From that under-13 league, we selected 36 players last year, and we have this year put them in 2 schools so that we can follow up on their talent. That is point number 1. Point number 2 is that the last 2 years, we trained 2,000 basic coaches because we need to have teachers of teachers for us to get anywhere. You cannot have excellent students, even in school, if you don't have good teachers. So what we did do is that we trained 2,000 coaches, and from this Monday today, we have a goalkeeping training course that's going on to equip our people with the knowledge of football that was never done for the last 3 years. So let's go forward. In infrastructure, Sophie talked about the frustration of Chan. While I was frustrated and Kenya was frustrated, the one thing I like to say is this. If you go to Nyayo right now, Nyayo will be a super 30,000-seater stadium in the next 2-3 months. It might miss by a month or something, but be a super stadium where we can play our football. Kasarani will be a super stadium where we can play our football. Meru, Kinoru, and Eldoret will be super stadium. City Stadium and Mombasa Municipal, now we have begun the conversation because they have seen what we are doing. You saw me open the Bomu Stadium a couple of days ago with Governor Joho. These are the things we are doing that are tangible, Yvonne. Now, move off that is to say, FIFA has agreed with us that our women have made the most strides in African football because we are investing 31% of our 125 million shillings we get from FIFA. We're putting it in women, and FIFA has recognized that. FIFA is coming here for a pilot project, Yvonne, so we can grow our women football and take it forward. So in under 20, in under 17, in under 13, and under 15, we are doing a lot of work there. So let's now move to our national team and our coach. I know Sophie spoke about our coach. We went and took a lot of time last year, about 2 months we took, and brought the country Paul Put, who we believed and thought and knew that was a super coach. We saw him taking up the team and winning for us Sekafa. It's a positive thing to win Sekafa, but not the ultimate thing. We were hoping to go places with him, but I can tell you that when you're employed, Yvonne, by KTN, if you leave, there will be another anchor. They might be better than you. Before you, there were others. So we had Paul Put. Paul Put now has resigned for personal reasons. We are recruiting a new coach. In 10 days, Yvonne, we shall unveil another good coach. We hope better than what we had, so we can continue on the path we are going. This coming match, Yvonne, we're playing 2 matches, build-up matches for Harambee Stars and government. And I spoke to the president today, and he has assured me that in the advent of SportPesa pulling out, government will support us 100%. In fact, they're dedicating $4 million for the journey to the Cup of Nations next year. Our aim is to see whether we can qualify and how we can qualify to the 2019 Cup of Nations next year. And so when you look at those things, and many others were put in place, for the first time, Yvonne, I can tell you, the players of Harambee Stars last year earned $6,000, 600,000 shillings, Yvonne, for playing football and winning that tournament. I cannot say it's big, but it's never been done. So there are many things that have happened that take us to the right direction. There are a few things that have happened that I would agree with what Robin has said, that pulled us back a couple of court battles. I can tell you today, we have a case at CAS, Court of Arbitration for Sport.
Yes.
Where one of our coaches, before I came to office, has won at FIFA compensation of $600,000 to be paid by Kenya for wrongful termination. We have appealed the case at CAS and are hoping that we can be victorious.
Okay.
And so what I'm saying, Yvonne, is that in these 2 years, we are working to remove the undercover that was there, that was making us not move. Now we are getting lighter as we go to 2020. Hopefully we'll get lighter in the next 4 years, and we can see 2022 being in the World Cup or 2026 playing in the World Cup.
All right, okay. I'm presenting your case since you took office in 2015, is it? 2 years now.
2016.
2016, yes. All right, so that is the FKF President, Nick Mwendwa. I'm also still with Robin Toskin, who's the sports editor here at the Standard Group. What are your thoughts regarding what Nick Mwendwa is saying tonight? Please continue to give us your feedback. The hashtag is the big story. I will get to that. And more of our questions and our discussion regarding the sport of football in this country. The big question we'll be discussing when we return is that of investment in this country. We will be right back, right here on The Big Story.